Hello everyone, in this video I tell you a little bit about the so-called FHIR standard in the healthcare market, for what it's for and how it can be leveraged with building services. So let's dive in. So basically, if you think of FHIR, you can access this webpage and it will tell you a little bit. So basically FHIR is a standard that helps in the healthcare market to exchange data because it describes between the systems, for example, how a patient will look like, how a practitioner will look like. And this has a huge benefit that systems can interoperably exchange data, because usually, or you often have systems where one system defines how a patient looks like and another system defines. And if they want to cooperate, it won't work, or they have to map the data. So with FHIR in place and the current R4 standard, there is now a common ground how to exchange data. So this is an example for the patient. And this is an example for the practitioner. Okay, these are the basics. Now, how about implementing this stuff? So as a Java developer, you have a multitude of options, but from a functional perspective, there is the so-called HAPI FHIR framework that can help you to implement FHIR very easily. So if we take a look here, this is a service. You can again find this service on my GitHub account. It's a FHIR facade. It's, yeah. And it's pretty easy. So what you need to have dependencies. So the whole so-called HAPI FHIR, I'm using version 5.6 currently here. We have this somewhere here. Yeah. And then you can happily start building services. So for example, you have a patient service, and this is pretty easy. You just have your service class declared, and then you extend from this abstract JAXA as resource provider, what a word. And you say, I want to have this with a so-called patient. This patient is basically a DTO, which defines how the FHIR patient looks like. So you don't need to generate or write this class yourself. This will be also provided by the HAPI FHIR framework in one of its libraries. I guess it's the HAPI FHIR R4 library. So you can start right away and happily build services. Then you see these annotations, and these annotations are not standard annotations. They are provided by HAPI FHIR. So you have things like read. So if you want to read the resources, you annotate this with @read. If you want to search, you annotate this with @search, and then you can apply parameters. If you want to save or create, there's @create for this, and so on and so on. So this drastically reduces the amount and effort to implement things and simplifies a lot of things. And with this in place, we already have a working service here. So we can start this guy. Takes a moment. And then we can go to our 2700. And then I can, for example, say, give me the patient. So as a standard, it will download this in XML. And because of this, the browser will download the stuff. But you see, so we have Homer Simpson here. Or I can download the practitioner. I just have to open it manually and we get Monty Burns. We also have a so-called bundle resource, which helps to put several resources into one resource. So for example, if we have this bundle, this puts a relationship, an indirect relationship between the patient and the practitioner. And we also have metadata, which basically is the server telling us what it can do. So the server can now tell us, hey, I can do bundles and I can do patient and I can do practitioner and other stuff. And this is all automatically done for us. So one minor thing, The question is, where does the data come from? So this FHIR facade has two options. It either has a mock implementation, will just give you the mock data you just saw, or it has a remote implementation, which will call one of the other services I showed you in another video, like the person service, and will then just map the data. But that's up to you. The standard, if you just open the project, is mock. This can be easily changed here. And even if you build a real-world application, I recommend that you will always have a mock implementation and a normal implementation, because with the mock implementation, you can get a feeling about how the objects look like and how they do behave. So that's a very good plus for the HAPI FHIR framework, because it helps to simplify things a lot. Of course, everything comes with a cost, and that's sadly the downside of the HAPI FHIR framework. And I have a small diagram for this. So basically, as we are also talking about cloud native applications here on this channel, there is a little bit of a problem with the HAPI FHIR framework, because we have the FHIR standard and the HAPI FHIR framework, so standard and the framework, and they have a lot of intersections. They help us to implement this, but not so much with cloud native. So why is that? The problem with the HAPI FHIR framework, at least currently with the 5.6 version still, it uses a lot of reflection. So basically every class that goes in and out, and even if it's not used, it will use reflection. And using reflection means not compatible with cloud native. At a first glance, you can make it compatible. I showed you this with Quarkus, but then you have to register all the classes. And beside the FHIR facade for Spring you just saw, the GitHub account also has the Quarkus version. And you see this class here, reflection configuration, and you see all these classes. So if you take a look at the line count, I did not exaggerate, so it's more than 300 classes that need to be registered. Plus that these things have internal static inner classes that also need to be registered manually. And it doesn't stop there. So this works for the version 5.4, I think. It will again break in version 5.6, which is not so nice because you have to register another classes here. So from a functional perspective, let's get to our Spring service. HAPI FHIR can help you a lot in the Java world. From a cloud native perspective, that can become a problem. And this is on the server side. So if we want to expose a service like we do here, but also on the client side, if we want to consume a service via the FHIR, so-called FHIR client. Of course, basically FHIR is just REST resources. We can always just use, for example, curl to get our data here, or like we do it currently here just in the browser. And we don't need to use the FHIR client, which is also now not compatible with cloud native applications right away. We can just use REST template or other things. But this again comes with a cost, because then you cannot use the DTOs provided by the framework. By the HAPI FHIR framework, you have to generate the DTOs yourselves. It won't work this way. So the question is, what is the recommendation, at least now? So the recommendation for now is, if you have a server application or a facade that helps you to add FHIR as a standard, as an afterthought to your application, it absolutely makes sense to use the HAPI FHIR framework together with a framework like Spring, because in Quarkus it's currently a problem. On the client side, however, at least from the current perspective, I would recommend now to not use the HAPI FHIR client, but to do it manually with REST template and to generate the resources. Okay. That's basically it for this video. Thank you very much for your time, and I hope to see you on the next one. Bye.